Hello there, my friend. Please come. Join me. I was just doing some reading, as usual. How have you been? Tell me all about it. How was your day? How are you feeling right now? I will tell you that I, DIO, find myself feeling rather nostalgic today. You see, in my youth, I recall back when I was living in England, I visited a fortune teller. He was an Oriental man, quite peculiar in his ways. From him one could procure any manner of items that were not known to those from my country, but nonetheless he was very interesting to me. When I walked in, I recall, yes, I cannot forget, the way he spoke of me. You may have noticed before the birthmark on my ear. I recall when this man from the Orient saw me up close, he told me that I was destined for greatness, that I was to be a ruler, a conqueror among men. And I can certainly say I do not doubt that he was quite correct. But as I consider this, what it means to be a great conqueror, I thought it best perhaps to look to the past, as I often do. In the world we live in now, leaders are not quite the way they were, and so I look to antiquity, where the greatest of mankind rose, and one could, if given the right circumstances, and divine favour as it were, could be fated to take over an entire kingdom, empire, country, continent, what have you. And so I find myself reading about these historical beings. I'm sure this name is not lost on you. You've heard of Alexander the Great, yes? What is it that made Alexander so great? From my reading and study, I find that Alexander is great because of his great conquest, his ability to continue moving forward as he travelled across the land, taking things just for the sake of conquering them, it seemed, an insatiable desire to expand further and further the reaches of his empire. We call him Alexander the Great. But tell me, what do we know of his descendants? What became of the line of Alexander? I will tell you. Alexander, for all his greatness, still had one fatal problem. He was mortal. And when his time came, he was still rather young. Alexander was killed, though the manner in which he died is not entirely known. He died prematurely, some might believe. And with it, as time went on, that great empire which he built was reduced, broken to pieces by those fighting over the scraps of what he left behind, no clear successor and no defined progeny to follow him. So I ask you, what do you know of Alexander's descendants? I will tell you, there are none. Alexander's entire bloodline was eradicated. Those who could ever dare to stand in opposition to those who wished to take over his empire needed to be erased. Even his own mother took up the cause to fight against those who would challenge for the crown, and she too was erased, killed, defeated. Alexander's mother, whose husband was quite the man himself, Alexander's father, in many ways he too was great for his achievements, though he's not often talked about as much as his son, who earned the title for greatness. Nonetheless, no matter how great of a conqueror Alexander may have been, in the end his bloodline was conquered. Or perhaps Cyrus the Great of Persia, another individual of significant historical value. You know, Cyrus too was a great uniter, expanding Persia in different ways, and also built for himself a remarkable country, with tremendous laws. The things he had done make him somewhat of a historical figure, beyond just that of a history book. He's even mentioned in the Bible. Can you believe that? Some mentions of Cyrus the Great, for being so benevolent. Yet, what happened to Cyrus the Great? Yes, I'm afraid a very similar fate befell him. Cyrus the Great was to eventually expire in the line of action. He too fell before the sword, so it is said, and his reign came to an end. No matter how great one is, it always seems to come back to this, doesn't it? Greatness. What does it mean to be great? These people are so very great according to historians and texts and histories, yet they failed, didn't they? They could not hold on to that which they had claimed forever. So then, are they truly so great? I, DIO, believe greatness is something else. These men whom I've spoken of, and every other you may think of who has the name great in their title, nearly all of them come from high-born families. Great, esteemed families, noble pedigree. Alexander, Cyrus, neither an exception to this. They were great because of things done before they came to be. They were great because they were enabled by others to become great. This is who we have called great. So then, what is greatness, if not something attained by one's own hand? Surely they did many great things, but before they had their great power, someone else made their destiny for them. The time in which men are called the great has long passed. Yet, I also believe that I, DIO, shall bring about a renaissance. I need not a title to know that I am great. And you, my esteemed company, I find you to be quite great as well. For you see, I've chosen you to be here with me. I've chosen your company as I pass the days idly. So then what is it to be great? I believe greatness awaits all who stand beside DIO, for no being alive will know greatness as I, DIO, shall know it, for now and all time. There reign those great historical deities of the past, ephemeral as their lifespans, though never forgotten. I, DIO, shall be different. I, DIO, shall be great long beyond the expanse of time. Oh dear, It seems I've gotten lost in thinking about my ambitions again. It really is quite selfish of me to overindulge, but I hope you didn't mind this time, allowing me to speak my mind. Though I do think, perhaps, for you, should you wish it, as I said before, greatness deserves great company. I would rather like for you to remain by me. It is a pleasure to have you listening to my musings. I don't always speak so fervently about these things, but when the time comes, I'm glad it was with a worthwhile listener. Now then, if you'll excuse me, I think it's time I get back to my reading. You're more than welcome to stay. In fact, I rather like the idea.